The phone call came on day 19 of the most brutal training program the Air Force offers. I was covered in mud, exhausted beyond anything I'd ever experienced, running on 4 hours of sleep spread across 3 days. My instructor, a senior master sergeant named Reyes, who'd seen combat in 3 different countries, pulled me aside after the evening formation. "Your family's here," he said. "Drove 6 hours to watch you quit." I stared at him, not understanding. "I didn't call them. I'm not quitting." His expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. "I know you didn't. Your brother did. Apparently, he's got money riding on you, washing out by the end of this week." He paused. "I made some calls. Thought you should know what you're really fighting against." He handed me a phone, his personal cell, which trainees weren't supposed to touch. On the screen was a text conversation, forwarded from someone who knew my brother. Screenshots of a group chat where my brother had been updating his friends on my inevitable failure for weeks. $500 says she doesn't make it past day 14. She's still in? Damn. Okay, I'll double down. No way she survives Hell Week. Just talked to my mom. Apparently, she's struggling. Should be any day now. Planning to drive up this weekend. Want to be there when she rings the bell. Ringing the bell meant quitting. Every training program like this has one. A bell or a symbol that candidates can approach at any moment to voluntarily withdraw. It's supposed to be an escape valve, a way out for people who've genuinely reached their limit. My brother thought I'd be reaching for it any day. He'd driven 6 hours to watch. I handed the phone back to Sergeant Reyes. My hands were shaking, but not from exhaustion anymore. "What do you want to do?" he asked. I looked toward the training facility, where the next evolution was already being set up. 12 more hours of hell before we'd get another chance to sleep. 5 more days until graduation. "I want to finish," I said, "and I want him to see me do it." Sergeant Reyes nodded slowly. "Good, because I didn't make those calls just so you could quit. I need to go back to explain how I ended up in a training program that breaks most people who attempt it, and why my brother was so certain I'd fail. Growing up, I was the invisible child, not neglected exactly, fed, clothed, educated, but overlooked in a household that revolved around my brother Kevin's achievements. He was 3 years older, naturally athletic, socially magnetic, the kind of kid who collected trophies and scholarships and parental attention without appearing to try. I was quieter, smaller, the one who read books in corners, while Kevin held court at family gatherings, the one who got decent grades, but never spectacular ones, who participated in activities, but never dominated them, who existed in the shadow of a brother, who cast a very long shadow, indeed. My parents loved me. I believe that. But they loved Kevin more visibly, more loudly, with the kind of pride that gets framed and hung on walls. His football trophies lined the living room shelves. His academic awards decorated the hallway. His graduation photo was the largest in the house. Mine was there too, just smaller, just off to the side. Kevin's path after high school was predictable. Athletic scholarship, business degree, entry-level position at a company where he could schmooze his way up the ladder. He was good at it, the corporate game. Good at making people like him, at saying the right things, at appearing competent even when he wasn't. My path was less clear. I went to community college, worked part-time jobs, drifted through my early 20s without a clear sense of direction. My parents worried about me in the vague way parents worry about disappointing children. Not enough to intervene, but enough to sigh about at dinner parties. "Kevin's doing so well at the firm," my mother would say, And Sarah's finding herself, finding myself. That was the polite way of saying I hadn't found anything yet. The Air Force recruiter I met at a job fair changed everything. Not because he was particularly persuasive, but because he asked a question no one else had bothered to ask. What are you good at that no one's noticed? I thought about it for a long time. What was I good at? Enduring, maybe. Persisting, when things got hard. Showing up day after day, even when there was no applause. No recognition, no trophy to put on a shelf. I'm good at not quitting, I finally said. He smiled. That's the most valuable skill in the military. Everything else can be taught. I enlisted 2 months later. My parents were confused, but supportive in their distant way. Kevin was openly skeptical. The military? He said when I told the family at dinner. Like actual military? With guns and running and stuff? Yes, Kevin, with guns and running and stuff. No offense, but he gestured vaguely at me. You sure you can handle it? It's pretty intense. I'll manage. He shook his head, that familiar smirk playing at his lips. I give it 6 months, tops. You'll be back home by Christmas. I didn't respond. I'd learned long ago that responding to Kevin just gave him more ammunition. But I remembered. I remembered everything. Basic training was hard, but manageable. I wasn't the fastest or the strongest, but I was consistent. I showed up, did the work, didn't complain. My training instructors noticed, not because I was exceptional, but because I was reliable. In a world of big personalities and flashy performances, reliability is sometimes exactly what's needed. I graduated basic in the middle of my class. Nothing special. But I graduated. Kevin didn't come to the ceremony. He had a work thing that conflicted. My parents came, took photos, told me they were proud. The pride felt conditional somehow, waiting to see if I'd actually make something of this, or if it was just another phase. After basic, I volunteered for additional training, specialized technical programs that most airmen avoided because the washout rate was notoriously high. My career counselor raised an eyebrow when I submitted the request. You know what you're signing up for? This program has a 60% attrition rate. People quit every single day. I know. Why do you want to do this? I thought about Kevin's smirk, about the trophy shelves that had never held anything of mine, about 23 years of being the invisible child, the disappointing one, the one who was always finding herself while never actually being found. Because I need to know what I'm capable of, I said, and the only way to find out is to do something hard enough to actually test it. The counselor studied me for a moment, then nodded. All right, but don't say I didn't warn you. The training program I entered was designed to break people. That's not an exaggeration. It's the explicit purpose. The military needs to know who can function under extreme stress, who can think clearly when exhausted and afraid, who can keep going when every instinct screams to stop. The only way to find out is to push candidates until they either prove themselves or ring the bell. They started breaking us down before we even arrived. The bus ride to the training facility was deliberately disorienting. Windows blacked out, route circuitous, arrival time unpredictable. When we finally stumbled off the bus at 3 a.m., instructors were already screaming, already demanding, already separating the candidates who'd freeze under pressure from those who could process chaos and keep moving. 3 people quit before the first night was over, just packed their bags and left, overwhelmed before the training had even officially begun. I watched them go with something between sympathy and determination. That wouldn't be me. That couldn't be me. The first week eliminated 30% of my class. People who'd been confident in the briefing room, who'd talked big about their preparation and their mental toughness, who'd looked at candidates like me, small, quiet, unremarkable, with barely concealed condescension. They rang the bell at 2 a.m, at the end of a 12-mile ruck march. During the underwater exercises that simulated drowning, the underwater training was where most people broke. They'd hold us beneath the surface, instructors' hands firm on our shoulders, timing how long we could manage the panic of running out of air. The key was staying calm. Panicked breathing burns oxygen faster, makes the whole thing worse. Easy to know intellectually, almost impossible to execute when every nerve in your body is screaming that you're about to die. I found a trick that worked for me. When the hands pushed me under, I'd think about Kevin, about every smirk, every dismissive comment, every time he'd looked at me like I was taking up space that rightfully belonged to him. The anger was cold and steady, and it gave me something to focus on besides the burning in my lungs. I held my breath longer than anyone expected. The instructors noticed. I didn't ring the bell. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. There were moments when my body was so exhausted that my vision blurred, when my muscles cramped so badly I couldn't stand straight, when the voice in my head whispered that no one would blame me, that I'd already proven something just by making it this far, that Kevin was right and I should accept my limitations. But then I'd think about that smirk, about the job fair recruiter who'd asked what I was good at, about the answer I'd given, not quitting. If the only thing I had was the ability to endure, then I'd endure harder than anyone else here. Week 2 was worse. They called it Hell Week for a reason. Continuous operations with minimal sleep, designed to simulate the stress of extended combat situations. We ran until our feet bled. We swam until our arms couldn't lift out of the water. We carried logs and boats and each other across sand and surf, hour after hour, until the distinction between day and night became meaningless. Candidates dropped every few hours. The bell rang so often, it became background noise, another sound in the symphony of suffering that defined our existence. Some people rang it screaming, furious at their own limitations. Others rang it quietly, too broken to make a sound. A few had to be carried to it, their bodies having given out before their minds could make the decision. I stopped counting the candidates who left. I stopped looking at the empty bunks each morning. I focused only on the next task, the next hour, the next minute, 1 minute at a time. That became my mantra. Not, I can do this whole program. That was too overwhelming to contemplate. Just, I can do 1 more minute, and then another, and another, until the minutes became hours, and the hours became days. And somehow, I was still standing when people who'd seemed so much stronger had already gone. Sergeant Reyes, our lead instructor, watched us with the flat assessment of a man who'd seen thousands of candidates come through this program. He didn't offer encouragement or sympathy. He offered standards, consequences, and the occasional observation that cut through the fog of exhaustion like a knife. Pain is temporary, he told us, during a rare moment of stillness. Quitting is permanent. Decide which one you can live with. I decided. Every day, I decided again. By day 14, our class had shrunk by more than half. The candidates who remained had a haunted look, the shared understanding of people who'd been pushed to their limits and somehow kept going. We didn't talk much. Talking took energy we didn't have. That's when Kevin's texts started showing up in his group chat. I didn't know about the bet at first. I didn't know my brother was tracking my progress through updates from my mother, who I'd been calling every few days to let her know I was still alive. Brief calls, mostly just, "I'm okay, training's hard, love you." She'd been passing the information along to Kevin, who'd apparently been using it to entertain his friends. Day 8, and she's still in, shocking absolutely no one. She's apparently struggling. The smart money says she's gone by Monday. Update. Made it through something called Pool Week. Still in, but my mom says she sounded rough on the phone. Any day now. $500 says she doesn't finish. Anyone want to take that bet? Easy money. I know my sister. The screenshots showed a running commentary that went back weeks. Kevin and 5 of his friends, treating my suffering like a sporting event, taking bets on when I'd break, celebrating each update that suggested I was struggling. Sergeant Reyes had gotten the screenshots through a chain of connections I didn't fully understand. Someone who knew someone who was in that group chat and thought the whole thing was disgusting. They'd forwarded the messages to someone at the base, who'd passed them to Reyes. "Normally, I wouldn't show a candidate something like this," Reyes said when he handed me the phone. "Distractions during training can be dangerous, but I've been doing this job for 15 years, and I've learned that sometimes the right information at the right time can turn a good candidate into a great one." He paused. "You've been good so far. I want to see what great looks like." "Why do you care?" I asked. It came out harsher than I intended, but exhaustion had stripped away my social filters. Reyes didn't seem offended. "Because I had a sister, too. Grew up with a family that didn't see what she was capable of. She never got the chance to prove them wrong." Something flickered across his face, too quick to read. I like giving people that chance. He didn't elaborate. He didn't need to. "Your brother's in the parking lot right now," he added. "Drove up with 2 of his friends. They've got a cooler and camping chairs. Planning to tailgate your failure." The image was so absurd that I almost laughed. My brother, sitting in a parking lot with beer and snacks, waiting to watch me quit like it was some kind of spectator sport. "What do I do?" I asked. "That's up to you. You can let it distract you, let the anger mess with your head, wash out because you're too busy thinking about him to focus on the training." Reyes shrugged. "Or you can use it. Let it fuel you through these last 5 days. Graduate on Friday, walk across that stage in front of everyone, and let him watch you succeed instead of fail. And then, nothing. You'll have proven what you're capable of. What he does with that information is his problem, not yours." I thought about it. The anger was there, hot and immediate. But beneath it was something else, something colder and more determined. Kevin had bet against me my entire life. Every eye roll, every smirk, every dismissive comment about my prospects and potential. He'd been betting against me since we were kids, and I'd been unconsciously agreeing with him, accepting his assessment, shrinking myself to fit the box he'd built. Not anymore. "I'm going to finish," I said, "and I'm going to finish strong." Reyes almost smiled. "Good. Now get back to formation. We've got a long night ahead." The last 5 days of training were designed to simulate operational conditions. Extended missions with minimal support, complex problem-solving under extreme fatigue, teamwork exercises that required every remaining candidate to function as a unit. I threw myself into it with a focus that surprised even me. The anger at Kevin had crystallized into something useful, a hard, bright point of motivation that cut through the fog of exhaustion. Every time my body wanted to quit, I thought about him sitting in that parking lot. Every time the bell seemed like a reasonable option, I imagined his face when I walked across the graduation stage. My fellow candidates noticed the change. "What happened to you?" asked Martinez, a stocky guy from Texas who'd been my partner for most of the training. "You've been like a machine these last few days. Just found some extra motivation. Whatever it is, keep it. We're almost there." We were. The attrition had slowed as we approached the end. The candidates who remained had already proven they could endure the worst the program could throw at us. Now, it was just about finishing, about crossing a line that most people would never even approach. Sergeant Reyes pushed us harder in those final days than he had at any point in the training. Later, I'd understand why. He was preparing us for the reality that graduation wasn't an ending, but a beginning, that the work ahead would be even harder than what we'd survived. But in the moment, it felt like torture. The night before graduation, we did a final evolution, a 20-mile ruck march, carrying full equipment, ending at a hilltop where we could see the lights of the base spread out below us. It took 7 hours. 3 candidates quit in the final miles, their bodies simply refusing to carry them any further. I didn't quit. My feet were bleeding. My shoulders were raw from the pack straps. My legs had gone numb somewhere around mile 15, but I didn't quit. When we reached the hilltop, Sergeant Reyes was waiting. He looked at the survivors, 12 of us out of an original class of 42, and nodded slowly. "You made it," he said. "Whatever happens next, no one can take that away from you." I looked down at the base, at the parking lot where I knew Kevin was probably sleeping in his car, waiting for a failure that wasn't coming. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I'd finally found what I was good at. Not just enduring, winning. Graduation day was bright and clear, the kind of day that feels significant even before anything happens. We assembled in our dress uniforms, 12 survivors who'd been strangers 7 weeks ago and were now bound by something deeper than friendship. The ceremony itself was brief and military efficient. Names called, certificates presented, a short speech about what we'd accomplished, and the responsibilities that came with it. My parents were in the audience. They'd driven up the night before, surprised that I'd made it this far, cautiously proud in a way that suggested they were finally starting to see me differently. Kevin was there too. I spotted him in the crowd, arms crossed, expression unreadable. His friends weren't with him. Apparently, tailgating a graduation ceremony was less appealing than tailgating a failure. He stood slightly apart from my parents, watching the proceedings with the careful attention of someone who'd bet wrong and was trying to figure out what it meant. When they called my name, I walked across the stage with my shoulders back and my head high. I accepted my certificate, shook the commander's hand, and looked directly at the audience, directly at Kevin. His face went through several expressions in quick succession. Surprise, though he shouldn't have been surprised if he'd been paying attention. Confusion, as his mental model of who I was collided with the reality in front of him. And then something else, something harder to name. Shame, maybe, or the beginnings of respect. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just looked at him, letting him see what I'd become, and then I turned and walked back to my place in formation. The ceremony ended. Families flooded the field to congratulate their graduates. My parents reached me first, hugging me tighter than they had in years, their eyes wet with tears they hadn't expected to cry. "We're so proud of you," my mother said. "I had no idea. I didn't know you could." "Neither did I admitted, "until I did it." Kevin approached more slowly. He stood at the edge of our little family cluster, hands in his pockets, waiting for an opening. When I finally turned to face him, he looked smaller than I remembered, less certain. "So," he said, "you made it." "I made it. He stopped, started again. "I owe some people money. I know. Sergeant Reyes told me about the bet. His face flushed red. Whatever he'd expected me to say, it wasn't that. He told you. He showed me the texts. She's apparently struggling. Any day now. $500 says she doesn't finish. I kept my voice level, reciting his words back to him without accusation or anger. Just facts. You drove 6 hours to watch me quit. Kevin opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. I didn't. I wasn't trying to. Yes, you were. I cut him off, but gently. You've been betting against me our whole lives, Kevin. This was just the first time you did it out loud, with money attached. That's not fair. It's completely fair. But here's the thing. I stepped closer, close enough that he had to look down at me. This little sister he'd underestimated for 23 years. I don't need you to believe in me. I don't need anyone to believe in me, because now I believe in myself, and that's enough. Kevin was silent for a long moment. The graduation crowd swirled around us, families celebrating, cameras flashing, the ordinary business of a day that felt extraordinary to everyone involved. I'm sorry, he finally said. The words came out rough, unfamiliar in his mouth. I wondered if he'd ever said them to anyone before. I know. I was wrong about you. I know that too. What happens now? I thought about it. The anger was still there, but it was quieter now, more like a scar than an open wound. Kevin was my brother. That hadn't changed, but what it meant had shifted, and we'd both need time to figure out the new shape of things. Now, I report to my next assignment, I said. I do the job I trained for. I keep proving what I'm capable of, not to you or to Mom and Dad, but to myself. And us? You and me? That's up to you. I'm not going to pretend the bet didn't happen, and I'm not going to forgive it overnight, but I'm also not going to carry it around forever. You made a mistake, a big one. What you do next is what matters. Kevin nodded slowly. He looked like he wanted to say something else, but whatever it was got stuck somewhere between his brain and his mouth. That was fine. We had time. Sergeant Reyes found me after the ceremony, while I was loading my gear into my car. He was out of his instructor role now, just a senior NCO, talking to a junior airman, but the dynamic between us had shifted. I'd earned something during training. Not just a certificate, but his respect. Good job in there, he said. The part with your brother. Handled that with more grace than most people would. Didn't feel very graceful. Grace isn't about feeling. It's about what you do despite what you feel. He leaned against my car, watching the parking lot empty as families headed home. What he did was shitty. The bet, the texts, driving up here to watch you fail. That's not how family's supposed to work. I know. But you didn't let it break you. You let it build you. That's rare. He was quiet for a moment. I've seen a lot of candidates come through this program. Some of them are physically gifted, some are mentally tough, some have every advantage in the world. Most of them still wash out. You know what separates the ones who make it from the ones who don't? What? It's not strength, or speed, or intelligence. It's what they do when someone tells them they can't. Some people hear that and believe it. Some people hear it and get angry. But a few people, a very few, hear it and get quiet. They take that doubt and they turn it into fuel. They stop trying to prove anything to anyone else and start proving things to themselves. Is that what I did? That's exactly what you did. When I showed you those texts, you could have let it distract you. You could have let the anger mess with your performance. Instead, you went out and had the best 5 days of training I've seen from any candidate this year. He pushed off from the car, straightening up. Wherever they send you next, remember that feeling. Remember that you don't need anyone's permission to be great. You just need your own. I didn't know what to say. This was more words than Reyes had strung together in 7 weeks of training. It felt like a gift, one I hadn't done anything to deserve. Thank you, I managed, for everything. The training, but also the call, showing me those texts, giving me something to fight for. Reyes almost smiled, the closest thing to warmth I'd ever seen from him. Thank yourself. I just gave you information. What you did with it was all you. He walked away without saying goodbye. That was his style, but I watched him go with a gratitude I couldn't fully express. For an instructor who'd seen something in me worth cultivating. I've been in the Air Force for 4 years now. The training I completed opened doors I didn't know existed. Specialized assignments, leadership opportunities, the kind of career progression that happens when you've proven you can handle the hardest things the military can throw at you. The certificate I earned that graduation day hangs on my wall in a simple frame. It's not the fanciest thing I own, but it means more than anything else. Some nights, when I'm tired, or doubting myself, or wondering if I've made the right choices, I look at it and remember what it took to get there. The mud, the exhaustion, the voice in my head telling me to quit. And then, the morning I didn't. My first assignment after training took me overseas. I can't talk about the specifics, operational security, but I can say that everything Sergeant Reyes taught us became real in ways the training could only simulate. Stress isn't theoretical when lives are on the line. Exhaustion isn't a training obstacle when missions extend for days without rest. The things we learned about ourselves in those brutal weeks became the foundation we built our service on. I found I was good at this work, not just enduring it, but excelling at it. The same qualities that made me invisible in my family: quiet consistency, reliable performance, the ability to function without applause or recognition, turned out to be exactly what certain military operations require. I got noticed. I got promoted. I started training others. The first time I led a training exercise for junior airmen, I thought about Sergeant Reyes, about how he'd pushed us without breaking us, how he'd seen potential where others saw limitations, how he'd given me information that could have destroyed me, but instead made me stronger. I tried to be that kind of leader, the kind who challenges people to exceed their own expectations. Some of those airmen reminded me of myself. Quiet, overlooked, carrying doubt they'd absorbed from families who didn't see their potential. I made it my mission to help them see what they were capable of, to give them the same gift Reyes had given me. Not everyone made it through. That's the nature of demanding programs. Some people don't have what it takes, and no amount of encouragement can change that. But the ones who did graduate, who pushed through their own versions of Hell Week and came out the other side, transformed. They understood something about themselves that would serve them for the rest of their lives. Kevin and I have found a new equilibrium. It took time, months of awkward phone calls and careful visits, rebuilding something that had been broken long before the bet made it obvious. He's never fully explained why he did it, why he needed so badly for me to fail. Maybe he doesn't fully understand it himself. The therapist I started seeing after graduation had some theories, something about sibling dynamics, about how Kevin had built his identity around being the successful one, and my achievement threatened that identity in ways he couldn't consciously acknowledge. The bet wasn't really about me. It was about him, about his need to maintain a version of reality where he was the special one, and I was just background noise. Understanding that helped me forgive him. Not forget. I'll never forget those texts, the cruelty of treating my struggle like entertainment. But forgive. He was fighting his own battle, even if he didn't know it. His weapons just happened to wound me in the crossfire. He's trying to be different now, trying to see me as I actually am instead of the limited version he'd always imagined. Last Thanksgiving, he asked me about my work. Really asked, with genuine curiosity, not the dismissive skepticism I'd grown up expecting. He listened to what I could tell him, asked follow-up questions, seemed to actually care about the answers. It's progress, slow and imperfect, but progress. Our parents have adjusted too. The trophy shelves look different now. My certificates hang alongside Kevin's, equal in size, equal in prominence. My graduation photo from training is the same size as his college graduation photo. Small things, but small things matter. They're learning that they had 2 children all along, not one star and one afterthought. My mother apologized once, about a year after my graduation. We were washing dishes together after a holiday dinner, just the 2 of us, and she stopped with her hands in the soapy water and said, "I didn't see you. For years, I didn't really see you. I'm sorry. I didn't know what to say." Part of me wanted to tell her it was okay, that I understood, that parents are human and make mistakes. Another part wanted to catalog every moment I'd felt invisible, every time Kevin got attention I deserved, every assumption she'd made about who I was and what I was capable of. Instead, I just said, "I know, and I forgive you." Because I did. Because carrying resentment is exhausting, and I'd already proven I could endure hard things. Forgiving my mother wasn't hard compared to Hell Week. It was just necessary. I still think about that training program, sometimes. About the bell I never rang. The miles I walked when my body begged me to stop. The moment when Sergeant Reyes handed me his phone, and I saw exactly what my brother thought of me. It could have broken me. It almost did. But somewhere in the mud, in exhaustion and pain, I found something I didn't know I had. A core of steel that couldn't be bent by doubt or dismissal, or the expectations of people who'd never really seen me. Kevin's $500 bet was the best thing that ever happened to me. Not because it motivated me to finish. I would have finished anyway, I think, but because it forced me to understand something important. The people who bet against you are usually fighting their own battles. Kevin needed me to fail because my success would force him to reconsider his own choices, his own path. The comfortable assumption that he was the exceptional one, and I was just background noise. When I graduated, I didn't just prove him wrong. I made him question everything he thought he knew about success and failure, about what people are capable of when they stop accepting other people's limitations. That's worth more than $500. That's worth everything. If you're listening to this and something resonated, if you've ever had family bet against you, dismiss you, assume you'd fail before you even started, I want you to know this. Their doubt says nothing about your capabilities. It says everything about their fears. My brother bet $500 I'd wash out because he needed me to wash out, because my success would force him to see himself differently. And that kind of self-examination is terrifying for people who've built their identity on being the exceptional one. But I didn't wash out. I finished. I walked across that stage and looked him in the eye and showed him exactly what I was capable of. You can do the same thing. Whatever your training, whatever your challenge, whatever voices are telling you you'll fail, you can prove them wrong. Not for them, for yourself. I'd love to hear from you. Has anyone in your family ever bet against you? Did you prove them wrong? Leave a comment below and tell me where you're listening from. We share stories like this every day here at Her Service. Her story. Stories about doubt, determination, and the power of proving yourself when no one else believes. If you don't want to miss the next one, subscribe and stay with us. Let's keep walking this path together.